Three, two, one, first round. And this kid comes out like hell at me. I'm like, holy crap, this kid has this. We're slugging, we're fighting. It is a tough round. He definitely won the first round. And Uriah comes up to me, he's like, man, you did great. I'm like, he did great. I'm like, I just had a war with some dude. Who the hell is that? I think the talent that I thought I had was delusion, which carried me a decent amount of the way. Yuri Prohaska, where I would never teach someone to fight like that, but I would also never try and correct that guy because obviously it's working. Once you get to the UFC, you're not just, you're technically in the UFC, but there's no guarantee you stay. And if you took the easy way to get there, we're going to find out real quick.
So when you wanted to go all in with MMA and kind of pursue it as a career, what did your family think? Was your family 100% on board?
Not even a little bit.
Do you train combat sports? How's your body holding up? Combat sports are the most physically demanding sports in the world. The weight cutting, the training schedules, there's no off season. Staying on top of your nutrition isn't optional, it's a necessity. Perfect Sports has a host of products that will help you a ton. They have products that promote muscle growth, give you energy, and boost your immune system, among many other benefits. Take your nutrition into your own hands so you can bring your best, most recovered self to train every day. Use code FIGHTERS15 for 15% off your Perfect Sports order. So I'm joined today by proper Mike Malott, Canadian UFC fighter, 15th ranked welterweight, coming off a big win against Kevin Holland last month. Mike, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me on.
Awesome. So how are you feeling after that Kevin Holland fight? I hope you took some time to like relax and rest up and celebrate.
Yeah, I'm feeling fantastic. We 5 day for the next 5 days after the fight, my wife and my in-laws and I went to Pemberton, British Columbia. The fight was in Vancouver, and we just stayed at basically the base of a mountain in a little chalet, and played cards and watched my brother's hockey games and ate good food and slept in. It was fantastic. So lots of rest, but back to training now.
That sounds amazing. I'm actually from BC, Vancouver, so I've actually watched you fight twice now live, UFC 289 and then this UFC Vancouver card. And one thing that really stands out to me watching fights live, but particularly watching you fight live, is like the energy in the crowd when the crowd is chanting your name, and I feel like you can see it coursing through you. So I guess my question about that is, do you feel the energy from the fans, and how does it feel for you to be fighting in front of Canadian fans?
No, I love it. It's the best feeling in the world, walking out for whether it's a press conference, whether it's the weigh-ins, whether it's the fight, walking out and just feeling that energy, feeling that excitement, hearing the crowd, like the building's just about shaking with people screaming and jumping. And yeah, there's nothing in the world like it. I absolutely love and cherish it.
Totally. I mean, you can really feel the love that the Canadian fans have for you, and it's really incredible to see like as a fan in the audience. I totally had such a surreal moment watching you fighting Kevin and hearing people chant your name, and I feel like you could see it kind of switch you into that next gear as well. It's super, super cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I feed off that energy.
Yeah, totally. So I want to bring it back to kind of the beginning. You've talked about how it was watching fights as a kid that really got you hooked on MMA. Do you remember any fights in particular that really made an impact on you?
The first two fights that I remember seeing were uh, Nate Quarry versus Lodenson Kincaid on the Ultimate Fighter finale for the first season. That fight really stood out to me. And the second fight was Vitor Belfort versus Marvin Eastman. I don't remember which fight I saw first, but both of those fights, I was like, "That's incredible! I can't believe that you can do that. That's like, I didn't know you could legally do that. It's incredible." And then for my fight in Montreal for UFC 315, when I fought Charles Radke, heading down to the weigh-ins, Vitor Belfort was a part of that show because he was inducted, I think, into the Hall of Fame with that fight. So he was in town for the fight, and we shared the elevator down while I was on the way to official weigh-ins. And I just shook hands with him and I said, "Hey, I just want to let you know, like your fight against Marvin Eastman is what got me into the sport." And he's like, "No way!" Like kind of a full circle moment for him, where like I was a kid who watched that fight 20 years ago, and now I'm fighting in the UFC. So that was a cool moment for me, and hopefully a cool moment for him.
That's incredible. And so was it just like love at first sight for you watching MMA and being like, okay, this is what I meant to do?
Absolutely. That's the best way to describe it. Love at first sight. It felt oddly familiar to watch. Like it felt like that was my calling. It was one of those things I saw on TV, and it was almost immediately like I'm going to do that for a living. That's what I'm meant to do.
That's super cool. So tell us about your first your first day of training. So you walk into your first day walking into your first gym. Do you remember anything about your first couple classes?
I remember signing up for my local gym, a local martial arts gym in town in Waterdown, Brown's Martial Arts, which is still running. And they were really welcoming, and they kind of had to sit down there. Like, my mom was there. I was 13 at the time, I think. And like, so, why do you want to do this? And I was like, I want to learn how to fight. And I said it like completely deadpanned, and he laughed, and my mom laughed, and they both kind of laughed it off. And I was like, what are they both laughing about? Like, I want to learn how to fight. Like, I don't know why
That's
this
so
is funny.
cute.
I don't know why this is funny to anyone. Like, that's why I'm here. And I'm sure, they get like fitness and self-defense and this, that. And I want to learn how to fight. But yeah, they were really welcoming and taught me for the first couple of years of my martial arts training.
That's incredible. And so when you started, was there kind of like a feeling that you had some kind of natural talent, or was it just the love that you had for the sport that kept you going through like those first couple years where it's really hard to learn? Learning martial arts is really difficult.
A bit of both. I think the talent that I thought I had was delusion, which carried me a decent amount of the way. But I was just so passionate about it. I was so obsessed. Like during my spares in high school, I would just sit on SureDog and just read people's stats and find whatever fights I could online when videos first started coming on the internet. And I remember watching like, old Uriah Faber fights and all these old fights, which was funny to fast forward and end up training with. Stay, train with Uriah Faber, stay at his house. He's one of my managers now, and I've cornered him in fights. So like funny to go from high school reading his like stats to then cornering him in a fight and like yelling instructions to him while he's fighting in the UFC. It's a wild,
That's pretty
wild trip.
insane.
Yeah. Yeah. Super cool.
Yeah. So when you wanted to go all in with MMA and kind of pursue it as a career, what did your family think? Was your family 100% on board?
Not even a little bit. No, not at all. I think it's one of those things that they thought was just going to be a phase that I would eventually grow out of. But it spoke to me. I never grew out of it. And some of the goals I'd say out loud, but some things I kind of kept to myself because I'm like, look, this sounds delusional. You know, I went to a private school in high school. We wore like blazers and ties. Like, I'm from a small town. Like, I'm not meant to be that kid who fights in the UFC. When people hear that, that sounds crazy. And I know it's a little bit delusional, but in my head, that was always the path. This was always what I was going to do. Even going to university, I'm like, okay, I'll get my degree because that's what you're supposed to do, but I'm going to put more effort into training than I am into actually studying, which is exactly what I did. I'm going to fight professionally in amateur Muay Thai while I'm in university, and I'm going to grow and learn as much as I can. And then when I'm done, I'm really going to chase this.
Yeah. What did you study in university?
I have a Bachelor of Commerce, so business.
Okay, cool, cool. So, when you talk about your career as a whole, you kind of you've mentioned in other podcasts that there was kind of like a period of time where you felt like you lost the love for fighting a little bit. So you took a step back, you focused kind of more on coaching, on just training and finding the love for it again. So, if you wouldn't mind just kind of like walking us through that realization in that era of your life and how you were able to build back the love for fighting and eventually come back around and start fighting again.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what caused that flame to burn out in a way, and I think some of it was just burnout from focus and training. I really didn't do anything outside of training. I was really disciplined. I wouldn't really go out after university. I didn't really go out with friends. I didn't go on vacations. I didn't do anything else. It was all pretty much training focused. I think you just kind of get older, you realize the consequences of some of the physical actions like fighting in and of itself, how dangerous it can be, and had some friends with some really horrible injuries from fighting. Um, but yeah, I felt like a lack of passion toward it. I wasn't excited to do it anymore. So I wound up coaching. I called Uriah Faber and Danny Castillo and kind of told them that I was thinking about stopping. And they're like, well, one of the head coaches is not going to be coaching anymore. You are quite technical. Some of the guys might want to work with you. Would you have any interest in that? Sure, that sounds good. Let's give that a try for a bit. I got obsessed with jujitsu. I was more of a striker before that point. So I got obsessed with jujitsu and got my black belt in jujitsu and, started wrestling a lot more and lifted weights for the first time really consistently at all. And first few times I got to UFC events cornering guys from Team Alpha Male, I had zero interest in fighting. Like, I am so happy to be a part of this, but you guys do this. I have no interest in it. And after a little while, it started creeping back more and more. I'm like, damn it, man, maybe I wish I was the one doing this. And I had thought about it before COVID. I'm like, maybe I will fight again at some point. I'd competed a lot in jiu-jitsu, but once COVID hit and you just are home with your thoughts a lot, I'm like, okay, what do I want my MMA competition story to say, and what does it say now? And I was happy with some of the things I had done. I'd fought in Bellator and World Series of Fighting, and I'd won almost all of my fights. But I knew there was a lot more on the table, so I thought I'd take one more run at it, and that really has just snowballed into the obsession again.
Yeah, well, I think all of us fans, I speak for all of us fans when I say we're really glad that you gave it another shot. But so what was it like diving into the world of coaching? Because obviously that's a complete other skill set, but I've heard a lot of people talk about how it complements their own skill development as well. What was your experience with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it really helps my martial arts journey and my own growth. I still try my best to help out other fighters when I can. I'm not in the coaching role, but there are plenty of times I'll grab somebody and I'll see them do something on a Thursday, Friday, come into the gym. Hey man, meet me at the gym tomorrow at this time. We're going to work on this for an hour and just kind of show people stuff. Or sometimes the stuff I want to work on, I try to break things down as conceptually and as simply as I possibly can. And I really love that part of martial arts. When I'm done fighting, I assume I'll have a big role in coaching because I love coaching and I love that aspect of martial arts. I love the problem solving, puzzle, physical puzzle side of MMA. Um, but yeah, I think it really did help my MMA journey. Had at 26, when I continued to fight then, I probably could have gotten to the UFC pretty shortly after 26. But when I got there at 29, I was way more prepared for the UFC than I would have been earlier in my career. And now I feel, obviously not just ready to be in the top 15, but continue to win fights. So I don't just feel like at that younger age where I felt like I could participate in the UFC. I feel like now I'm in a spot where I can make some serious waves.
Totally, yeah, and that's something that you've talked about a lot as well, that it's the goal shouldn't just be to make it to the UFC, it should be to stay in the UFC. And one thing that I really like that you've said is that staying in the UFC is a lot harder than making it to the UFC. And I think that it's a really kind of mature perspective to have and something that a lot of young fighters struggle with. You know, the goal to make it to the UFC is so all-encompassing, but it's more important to craft yourself into the kind of fighter that can actually progress into the UFC as well. So I think that that's a really important conversation to be having, an important lesson for young fighters everywhere.
Thank you. You've done your homework.
I
Um,
have.
yeah, I think there are a lot of guys who rush their career to get to the UFC. Like, okay, if I just win these six kind of easier regional fights, then I can get to Contender Series and get to the UFC quickly. And some of those guys are talented. Some of those guys come from specialized backgrounds like wrestlers or, a good kickboxing background. But I try to encourage those guys to slow it down and take their time because once you get to the UFC, you're not just, you're technically in the UFC, but there's no guarantee you stay. And if you took the easy way to get there, we're going to find out real quick. And unfortunately, you see that with a lot of guys who've had a lot of success on regional scenes, just finding a way to Contender Series, and they either get smoked on Contender Series or they, somehow win an exciting fight and get into the UFC. And they're the guys that end up on the wrong side of highlight reels. And, so I say to a lot of up and coming guys like, hey, man, we don't need to just rush to get you there. We want when you get there, which you will if you continue along this path, might take a little bit longer, but when you get there, you'll belong a lot more. You won't just have gotten a pair of shorts and gloves out of it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's such a hard perspective to keep, you know, especially considering how building up your career on the regional circuit is not a very, um, it's a struggle for a lot of fighters. Like you don't earn a lot of money. Life
Mhm.
as a young fighter is a struggle. So I get it, but at the same time, I think it's really important that you're preaching that message. And another thing that you've mentioned a lot is how much fun training for fights is for you now. You said that it doesn't even really feel like you have a job. You just go to the gym, you hang out with your friends, you train, like that's the thing you love, and it's
Mhm.
super special that you get to do that. And this is one of my favorite questions to ask fighters when I interview, and it kind of goes hand in hand with this. It's because it sounds like you have a lot of fun when you're training. What is your funniest training story?
Oh, my funniest training story. One that comes to mind is sparring at Team Alpha Male. And I'd seen this kid a couple of times. He was new to Team Alpha Male. And when he first got there, he kept wearing these matching outfits. He had a long sleeve rash guard, long sleeve spats, like long leg spats, and then board shorts. And they all matched. Like one of them was a honeycomb. So it was like all honeycomb patterns on the rash guard, on the leggings, and the shorts. So I assumed based on his attire that this was like some 10th planet jiu-jitsu kid, because I feel like those are the jiu-jitsu guys that wear the all the matching stuff. And I had seen him, he was like he's a Russian, he had like an Eastern European accent. I thought maybe Russian, goofy guy, seemed really friendly. Okay, cool. Like it's sparring day. We're putting on 16-ounce gloves. I'm like, okay, this kid grabbed me first. I'm like, ah, shit. Okay, well, yeah, I'll give you the first round. Then I'm like, okay, who's my second round going to be against? Who's my third round going to be against? Okay, we've kind of warmed up. All right, you're going with your partners. Ready? Three, two, one, first round. And this kid comes out like hell at me. I'm like, holy crap! This kid has this. We're slugging. We're fighting. It is a tough round. He definitely won the first round, the first 5 minute round of predominantly striking. And I'm in the room and I let my ego get to me where I'm like, no, I'm not shooting on this kid. I want to feel this striking and I want to overcome it. Round ends. He 10-9 me. He won the round. They're like, okay, grab a new partner. He's looking around. I grab him on the shoulder. I said, no, 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 we're going 3 rounds. Then we start picking it up and we just have back and forth, great rounds. I'm slugging it out with this kid. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? So 3 5 minute rounds go by and Uriah comes up and he's like, man, you did great. I'm like, he did great. I'm like, I just had a war with some dude. Who the hell is that? And he goes, no, that's this kid. That's a world kickboxing champion from Russia, Vyacheslav Borshev, and now Slava in the UFC. I'm like, oh, this guy's like a legitimate world kickboxing champion. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. But I was mad. I'm like, how the hell is this guy hanging? Like, how am I having hard rounds with this kid? And so, obviously I knew he was skilled, but I'm like, no way, I'm gonna roll over here. We're gonna fight this out. And now Slava is one of my favorite people in the world. Absolutely love the guy. He is one of the sweetest human beings I've ever met. He's had, last time I was down at Alpha Male, we again beat each other up like crazy. He had a fight in Australia he's getting ready for. As soon as we finish up 3 5s and beat each other up, he's like, brother, come over tonight. Or come over this afternoon. I make you Russian pancakes. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, go over to his house. He makes me pancakes and sit around and share stories. He's just like, he's such a sweet person, such a beauty. And without question, the best striker I've ever worked with. Is as much as he shines in the UFC, people still haven't seen just how good his striking is.
That's incredible. Yeah, he was actually on, I think, one of the first cards I ever watched. I can't remember if it was the liver shot knockout or if it was the one before that, but immediately I was like, I love this guy. His little dance after he wins as
Oh,
well. He's an awesome guy.
exactly what you see on TV, just the cheery, like great vibes. He's like that all the time. He's a really great person.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That's hilarious. What a great story. Yeah. So, I want to ask you some questions about kind of like guess this would kind of be like advice for people who train and that look up to you as well. Do you have any particular fighters that you study for technical or style inspiration for your own game?
Oh yeah, tons. I tend to study fighting a lot more when I don't have a fight coming up. When I'm in camp, I tend to focus a lot more on what I'm already good at and what I'm already doing, and I let my coaches give me a lot more of the feedback outside of camp. I watch a lot more footage, like the last few weeks, especially. I don't have a fight coming up. I'm really hungry to watch fights. I kind of go through phases. There's been kind of like a grappling phase of some of the guys I've been watching a little more recently, are I like watching Grant Dawson and Joe Selecki and Pat Sabatini. Those are like three really high level top grapplers. I really like their styles. And then a good friend of mine who I also like to study and watch is in that same way as like Anthony Hernandez, Fluffy. So love watching those style of fights more recently.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Working on your technique a little bit out of camp is instead of, obviously in camp should be more getting yourself fit, studying for your particular opponent. What are some qualities that you think distinguish decent strikers and great strikers?
I think fighting's so individual where, in my experience, it's almost following what makes you special and unique or what it works for you and following that as far as you can while taking feedback and sharpening things and sticking to the general principles that makes striking work. But you can see elite level strikers all across the spectrum of what works for striking, right? We can look at like a Wonder Boy Thompson who may break some of the rules that you'd see in traditional fighting versus like an Ilya Taporia, where when Taporia enters in the pocket, his chin's down, hands up, and he's ready for tight inside boxing. And Wonder Boy talks about how he's, on the outside and lets his hands create balance for him when he's moving his head and tends to dance more on the outside. And you can see everything in between where sometimes it's like an awkward style of striking that's incredibly effective, like a Yuri Prohaska, where I would never teach someone to fight like that, but I would also never try and correct that guy because obviously it's working. He has like 31 wins and 27 TKOs or something like that. It's clearly effective. So let's not try and fix what's not broken, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's super funny how sometimes the things that look wrong can t be the most effective way for some people. And so,
Mhm.
what do you think are some of the most important concepts for beginners to learn about striking? Like the first maybe three concepts that you would make sure are instilled in a beginner.
The first thing is making sure you have strong balance. So we're not crossing our feet. We're not bringing our feet together. I'm not getting tall. I'm not getting out of position. I'm trying to keep my feet under me the whole time, stay balanced so that I'm always in like an athletic position, whether it be to be offensive or defensive or reactive or proactive, right? The second would be in line with that in having a good shield, right? Making sure that our chin's not up in the air, making sure we're not reaching at people, making sure we're in a position where we're going to take punches at times. Am I able to take them off my guard, off my shoulders, or worst case scenario, I get hit in the head? Am I in a good position where I can eat a shot because my head's in a good spot, my neck's in a good spot, I'm balanced, I'm not, leaning back with my chin up in the air. And then the third thing would be just building confidence and hitting in meaningful ways. I think a lot of people get lost going down the rabbit hole of like Instagram style training where they see all these cool long combinations and you're doing a lot of stuff where you're doing a lot of nothing. You're doing these 17 punch combos where, you've never seen anything like that land in a fight. And realistically, that's not going to happen. Somebody with a crisp jab just shuts down everything you're doing and you can't find your way in. So throwing with intent and being able to actually do some damage with those strikes.
Yeah, absolutely. The importance of fundamentals really, really shines through there as well. And you're a jiu-jitsu black belt. Jiu-jitsu is my main martial art. I do a bit of striking, but I love jiu-jitsu. So I'm curious, do you have a favorite submission?
Yeah, rear naked choke. Rear naked choke's the best submission
So
in my
reliable.
yeah, I think that's just the truest way of in most times of beating someone. An arm triangle, in my opinion, is a close second, but most of the time to achieve a rear naked choke, we either engaged on the ground either by taking somebody down where we got taken down and you were able to sweep them past their guard, take their back, and choke them. It's rarely a surprise, right? You can catch someone in a guillotine, you can catch someone in an armbar, you can catch someone in a heel hook, but it's very rare you just get caught in a rear naked choke or an arm triangle. It's almost always someone controlled you and got ahead of you several times throughout the fight, and you knew what was happening and weren't able to stop it.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree that I think it's one of the most dominant submissions. You can't get a rear naked choke without dominating your opponent.
For sure.
Um, yeah, so how do you deal with the nerves of a big fight? You've talked about working with a mental coach, and how do you think that that's helped you sharpen your mentality to be able to perform at your best for these big, stressful fights?
Yeah, I think that's been monumental for me. That's been extremely, um, yeah, it's been monumental for me. Um, it's important for me. to it's been helpful to keep me present and focus on what's actually important for a fight, right? I talk about this before all my fights. There are so many outside factors that absolutely can alter or influence what happens in a fight. For example, someone's trash talking you. You can let that get to you. That absolutely can be a factor. Um, but what actually is happening in the octagon, focusing on what actually makes the biggest difference, and focusing on your preparation and your process, and focusing on what got you here, and what you worked on throughout camp, I think is far more important than all these other distracting things, right? Whether it's, wanting to make money, wanting to be a champion, wanting to get ranked, wanting to be on pay-per-views, wanting all these other outside things. It's like none of that is actually affecting what's right in front of you. What affects right in front of you? Focus on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the only things that you can control, your own approach, your own training as well. So, yeah, that's super interesting. Um, so I want to move on and talk a little bit about nutrition with you. You mentioned in another previous interviews, it was a couple years ago that you mentioned that you've been a pescatarian for a decade or so. I don't know if you're still eating pescatarian. You are?
Yeah. Yeah. For about 13 years now.
Okay, wow, wow. So do you kind of supplement your diet with nutritional supplements?
Yeah, I take a decent amount of supplements. I mean, I get a lot of what I need from my food anyway. I eat quite healthy. I'm also lucky where I have a supplement sponsor. Perfect Sports has been helping me the last, you know, several years. Most of my UFC career, I've been working with them, and so I get my a lot of extra nutrition from those guys as far as like vitamins or electrolytes or protein. But beyond that, yeah, I eat quite well throughout the year. I don't really get out of shape. Um, I also don't do massive weight cuts. This was the biggest I've been going into a welterweight fight, so kind of the toughest cut that I've had, but I still felt very comfortable with it. But yeah,
Yeah, that's great to hear. And what do you think are some of the most important supplements the martial artists should be taking?
I think creatine's huge. Number one for recovery, your brain, and strength. Obviously, getting enough protein, right? It's really hard to get. Probably for most active martial artists, you probably need about 200 grams of protein a day at least, which can be tough to get in just through food. So you're probably going to need to supplement some sort of protein throughout the day, whether it's like finishing your day off or like eating your breakfast and taking a shake or after workouts or whatever. Um, Another one I just started taking, um, again, another Perfect Sports one has magnesium, zinc, and vitamin D. So just for daily immunity, right? If we're getting sick, we're taking time off training, we're not recovering properly, so that's huge. And then probably the final one would be electrolytes, right? Like when you're in a martial arts room, you do jiu-jitsu, you're drenched by the end of your session, right? Like you're sweating everything out. So getting those minerals back into your body, not just the actual fluids, not just the water itself, but getting the minerals back in your body is very important.
Yeah, I get the worst headache if I don't have electrolytes, especially if I train early in the day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, do you do anything particular when you have like a heavy training day coming up or a big sparring day? How do you fuel with supplements in preparation of that?
Electrolytes the big one. Right. So I just make sure I'm eating, like if it's a big sparring day, I carb up kind of the night before, and then I just have a little bit of carbs in the morning because I typically spar in the morning. But yeah, making sure that there's no shortage of electrolytes. That's the biggest thing before sparring. Before, during, and after sparring is that's where injuries happen, right? Your muscles start seizing up. You become, if you're a little dehydrated, your muscles aren't as elastic. Your joints are a little dried out. So that's the thing that I focus on the most.
Yeah, totally. That's super interesting. So before we finish up, I want to ask you if you have any names on your mind of people that you want to fight next.
Not a call out guy. I have, the whole top 15 I have my eyes on. Obviously, something a little higher would be nice. Like I'm already 15, so if we could crack that top 10 or hit number 10, that would be great. For the next one, I could see myself being two, maybe three fights away from a title shot. So obviously, we take them one step at a time. But I just cracked top 15. I think the next step is cracking top 10. Step after that, top five, right?
Yeah, so I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I do have just one more question to ask you, and it's one that we ask everyone. Um, so for people that look up to you and want to follow in your footsteps and pursue a career in the UFC, what kind of advice would you give them if you had to kind of narrow it down to one piece of advice? I know it's hard to consolidate it to just one thing, but what do you think is the most important piece of advice that you'd give?
Assuming this is a person who's never stepped foot in a gym, the first thing is get in the door. It doesn't even matter where you start training. Because right now, if you're looking for the perfect direction, you're not going to find it. You need to start understanding what's going on. You just need to start learning martial arts at least a little bit. And from there, you'll build like, oh, okay, this is either the right place for me because they're doing the right things. They have people who are competing, the vibe's great, the technique's great. Or I'm like, okay, I'm in a spot that's not great. People are, it's a martial arts spot that's making some money, but this isn't for fighters or this isn't the right vibe for me. You'll build off that, but you have to start with some sort of traction. So don't overthink where to start, just start and go from there.
Yeah, that's really great advice. That's the hardest part for most people is just getting in the door. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time for this. This is super, super interesting. I hope you enjoy the fights this weekend and best of luck with I hope you enjoy your time off of camp and looking forward to seeing what's next for you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time and good questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.